Good day, everyone. Our topic for today is all about personal construct theory. Learning outcomes. At the end of the unit, the student should be able to define what personal construct recovery is and create meaning from observation and experience. What is personal construct theory? Personal construct theory is a theory of personality and cognition developed by the American psychologist George Kelly in the 1950s. It suggests that people develop personal constructs about how the world works, and people then use these constructs to make sense of their observation and experiences. These ideas must be meaningful so as to create a lifelong impact to learning. Also, the world we live in is the same for all of us, but the way we experience it is different for each individual. For example, imagine that you and your friend are going for a walk in the park and you spot a large cat. You immediately see a graceful and adorable animal that you would like to pet. Your friend, on the other hand, see a threatening animal that she wants to avoid. How can two people have such a different interpretation of the same event? According to psychologist George Kelly, personality is composed of the various mental constructs through which each person views reality. He believed that each person was much like a scientist. Just like scientists, we want to understand the world around us, make predictions about what will happen next, and create theories to explain events. In contrast to this theory, Kelly saw individual differences as a result of how we interpret and predict the events that affect us. Right or not, we develop a way of interacting with the world. This way of interacting is our personality. The main idea behind Kelly's theory is called the Fundamental Postulate, which states that a person's processes are psychologically channelized by the ways in which he anticipates events. In other words, we act in a manner congruent with how we expect the world to be based on our interpretations of past events. If we see people as friendly and helpful, we are much more likely to engage others and seek advice. For example, first day of school. May mga bago kang mga kaklase, pero you can feel them by their appearance. Isang tingin mo pa lang, alam mong friendly sila, and you can show them of who you are and tell them what you feel. Kahit stranger sila para sa'yo, you can already trust them, but if you see people as selfish and cruel, it would only be logical to avoid interpersonal relationships and rely solely on our own abilities. If sa tingin mong hindi siya o sila, kaya ayang pakisamahan, you depend on yourself at kusa ka na lang iiwas. Hindi naman sa'yo cannot judge by its cover, pero it's according to personal construct theory. Next, underlying the fundamental postulate of Kelly's theory are 11 corollaries which together explain how we interpret information, why we often see the world differently, and how we influence the perceptions of the others. This is even more in direct conflict with prolific writings of Freud and his followers, and even the flowcharts of Watson and Skinner. This is seen as both a benefit and a flaw, since this outline-type theory is criticized as being confusing and overly simplistic. How exactly does personal construct theory work? Kelly believed that we start by first developing a set of personal constructs which are essentially mental representations that we use to interpret events. These constructs are based on our experiences and observations. During the early 1950s, the behavioral and psychoanalytic perspectives were still quite dominant in psychology and teaching. Kelly proposed his personal construct theory as an alternative view that departed from these two prominent points of view. Rather than viewing human beings as passive subjects who were at the whims of the associations, reinforcement, and punishments they encountered in their environments, which is behaviorism, or their unconscious wishes and childhood experiences, which is psychoanalysis, Kelly believed that people take an active role in how they collect and interpret knowledge. As we live our lives, we perform experiments that put our beliefs, perceptions, and interpretation to the test. If our experiments work, they strengthen our current beliefs. When they don't, we are able to change out views. What makes these constructs so important? According to Kelly, we experience the world through the lens of our constructs. These constructs are used to predict and anticipate events, which in turn determine our behaviors, feelings, and thoughts. Kelly also believed that all events that happen to our life are often to multiple interpretations, which he referred as constructive alternativism. When we are trying to make sense of an event or situation, we are also able to pick and choose which construct we want to use. This sometimes happens as an event unfolds, but we can also reflect back on out experiences and then choose to view them in different ways. Constructive alternatives allow us not to be controlled by our construct but are free to revise or replace them with other alternatives. How do we use constructs? It is believed that the process of using construct works in much the same way that a scientist utilized a theory. First, we begin by hypothesizing that a particular construct will apply to a particular event. We then test this hypothesis by applying the construct and predicting the outcome. If our prediction is correct, then we know that the construct is useful in this situation and we retrain it for the future use. But what happens if our prediction don't come true? We might reconsider how and when we apply the construct. We might alter the construct or we might decide to abandon the construct altogether. For example, a student who is residing in a war-stricken area seeing men in uniform can be usual and casual scene. This might give him and his family the feeling of being secured. But if they cannot see them, the men in uniform, even one of the ordinary days, this might drag them to predict they are no longer safe or the place is already peaceful. Their constructs help them cope with the events of their lives. Recurrences play an important role in personal construct theory. Constructs emerge because they reflect things that frequently recur in our experiences. Kelly also believed that constructs tend to be organized in a hierarchical fashion. For example, more basic constructs might lie at the base of the hierarchy, while more complex and abstract constructs can be found at higher levels. Kelly also believed that constructs are bipolar. Essentially, each construct consists of a pair of two opposite sides: active versus passive, stable versus changing, friendly versus unfriendly. The side that a person applies to an event is known as the emerged pole. The side that is not being actively applied is the implicit pole. Constructs are inherently personal because they are based on each person's life experience. Each person's system of construct is unique and it is the individual nature of these experiences that forms the differences between people.
So next is the 11 corollaries of construct theory. So there are 11 repercussions identified as the effect of the theory's application. First is construction corollary. Because repeated events are similar, we can predict or anticipate how we will experience such an event in the future. Second is individual corollary. People perceive events in different ways. And next is the organization corollary. We arrange our constructs in patterns according to our view of their similarities and differences. Second is dichotomy corollary. Constructs are bipolar and consist of pairs of opposites. Example is good to bad. Next is choice corollary. A person chooses for himself that alternative in a dichotomized construct through which he anticipates the greater possibilities for extension and definition of his system. Example is subject teacher 1, past secure choice. And second is subject teacher 2, new adventurous choice. And next is the range corollary. A construct is convenient for the anticipation of a finite range of events only. Second is experience corollary. We continually test our constructs against last experiences to make sure they remain useful. And next, modulation corollary. We may modify our construct as a function of new experience. Example is a friend versus family. Psychology major same interest with his. and a sorority member opposite with his views. Next is the fragmentation corollary. A person may successively employ a variety of construction subsystems which are inferentially incompatible with each other. Next is commonality corollary. A person may successively employ a variety of construction subsystems which are inferentially incompatible with each other. And next is socially corollary. We try to understand how other people think and predict that they will do, and we modify our behavior accordingly. Common interpretation of this concept that can be used in the classroom setting. First is the role motivation. Humans are born motivated, and every person is motivated for no other reason that he or she is alive and happy. Second is the anxiety recognition. The events with one is confronted lie outside the range of convenience of one's construct system. We cannot construe an event. We experience anxiety. Second is hostility. Hostility, a continued effort to extort validation events in favor of a type of social prediction which has already proven itself a failure. And aggression. Second is aggression. Aggression, the active elaboration of one's perceptual field. Next is guilt, perception of one's apparent dislodgement from his core role structure. Threat, awareness of imminent comprehensive change in one's core structure. Next is the fear, result when a peripheral element of one's construct system is invalidated. The next is the unconscious. Construct with low cognitive awareness could be considered as unconscious thing. Next is the learning. Learning, the constant alteration of one's construct system with the goal of increasing the predictive efficiency. Any change is learning in one's construct system. Okay. We do not seek reinforcement of avoidance of pain. Instead, we seek validation of our construct system in prime consideration of the cognition emphasized on mental events and the humanistic part that gives importance on the creative power of determining personality. The individual learner has its own personal way of assuming more of the stature of scientist. Ever seeking to predict and control the course of events with which he is involved. It is also believed by Kelly in 1953 that people have a fundamental need to predict the events that they experience. They do so by developing a system of personal construct, which they use to interpret or construct new events. Construct are derived from recurring elements in one's experience, but because they're developed separately by each person's system of construct is unique. Finally, all human beings can develop their own constructs, which allow them to anticipate in future events accurately. It is like making decisions and choosing alternative action which are more valid and meaningful.
Good morning guys, I'm Robin Gilbert Manjola, and let us tackle about the topic 14, which is the bioecological theory. So before we tackle about this topic, let us know first the learning outcomes of this topic. At the end of the unit, the students should be able to first explain how the different systems influence the growth and the development of the learners. Second, to identify the factors in the environment that affect the learning and the development of the child. And lastly, to analyze how the teacher applied the bioecological theory in the classroom setting and understanding the nature of the learner. So, let us start. What is the bioecological theory? The bioecological theory or ecological system theory is an approach used to study human development. It consists the scientific study of progressive mutual accumulation throughout the life course between an active growing human being and changing properties of immediate setting in which the developing person lives. How about the bioecological model? Likewise, the bioecological model is the theoretical model of gene-environment interaction in human development. This model was first proposed by Bronfman and Stephen J. Sayce in 1994. It is an extension of Bronfman-Brenner's original theoretical model of human development called the ecological system theory. Drawing from the natural ecosystem, which are defined as the network of interaction among organisms and the between organism and their environment. Social ecology is a framework or a set of theoretical principles for understanding the dynamic interrelation among various personal and environmental factors. So, who is Yuri Bronfman? Yuri Bronfman was a Russian-born American developmental psychologist who is most known for his ecological system theory of child development. He developed the ecological system theory to explain how everything in a child and the child's environment affects how child grows and develops. He came up with a bioecological model of human and social development. His bioecological theory was well known as describe a system approach to human development. He believed that the human race lived and interact within a series of systems. The bioecological model examined the social interaction in relationship in which development occurred. The bio aspect of model observes the biological selves that are brought into the environmental process. The ecological aspect recognizes the social context in which someone develops. So, Bronfman labeled different aspects of or levels of environment that influence children development, including the microsystem, mesosystem, exosystem, and macrosystem. First is the microsystem. What is the microsystem? The microsystem is a small, immediate environment that the child lives in. Children microsystem will include an immediate relationship or organization they interact with, such as immediate family or caregivers, in their school or daycare. How these groups or organizations interact with the child will have an effect on how the child grows. The more encouraging and nurturing these relationship and places are, the better the child will be able to grow. Furthermore, how the child acts or reacts to these people in the microsystem will affect how they treat her in return. Child's special genetic and biological influence personal traits, what is known as temperament, and end up affecting how other treats them. So the second one is the mesosystem. Bronfman next level, the mesosystem, describe how the different parts of child's microsystem work together for the sake of the child. For example, if the child's caregivers take an active role in a child's school, such as parent-teacher conference or watching their child's soccer games, this will be ensured that the child's overall growth. In contrast, if the child's two set of caretakers, mom with stepdad or dad with stepmom, disagree how to best raise the child and give the child conflicting lessons when they see him or her, this will be hinder the child's growth in different channels. The third one is the exosystem. The exosystem level includes the other people and places that the child herself may not interact with often herself but still have a large effect on her, such as parents' workplace, extended family members, and the neighborhood, and many more. For example, if the child parents gets laid off from work, that may have negative effect on the child if their parents are unable to pay for rent or buy groceries. However, if the parents receive promotion and a raise at work, this may have a positive effect on the child because their parents will be better able to give their physical needs. And lastly, the macrosystem. Bronfman final level is the macrosystem. which is the large and the most remote set of people and things to the child, but which has a great influence over the child. The macrosystem includes such as a thing as the relative freedom permitted by the national government, cultural values, economy, wars, and etc. These things can be also affect the child either positively or negatively. Uh, as a general, the theory proposed by that human live and interact within the three systems. First is the microsystem. It includes the mesosystem. Second is the exosystem, and lastly the macrosystem. The conceptual model demonstrate that the system are each contained within um, the other, and the children are affected by all the system, but some can be more direct to the children and have greater influence. Within the microsystem, the child had direct interaction with the parents, teachers, neighborhoods, peers. The immediate social and immediate physical environment will all affect or influence the microsystem. The mesosystem is a subgroup of the microsystem. The mesosystem includes the linkage between the microsystem. This could include family, school, and the relationship with the peers. This system looks at the individual roles that the child plays in the microsystem. The second one is the exosystem. Involves the setting in which the child does not have to um, active role in the experiences that influence the child. This includes the community, neighborhood, and the school boards. And the macrosystem. The macrosystem includes the broader culture in which the child lives. This could include the social and the cultural norms or political system. Each of these systems works to influence each other, but also to influence is to be influenced by the child. Systems do transitions to new ones, but several systems can act on the child at a time. So these are some of the most common real-life scenarios which the teacher can use the bioecological theory. The example number 1. It is an example between child in the religious setting. This would be considered a part of system of Bronfman-Binner's Bioecological Model. When the child's parents are religious, often the child is taken to their parents' place of worship. They are taught the values and morals of that religion and expected to live by the rules of that religion. For instance, a child who was raised in the devout Muslim home would not eat anything containing pork. For other cases, the children who have raised in extremist homes, for example, are more likely to be racist against certain groups of people. So, the example number 2, the relationship between the child and their parents. When the parents are going through a divorce, it can create an unstable environment. Children have no control over their parents getting to a divorce. This type of microsystem will have a potential negative effect on the child that the parents don't realize it at the time. When the parents are going to divorce, the children environment becomes completely opposite that they have been accustomed to. They have to go from that stable two-parent home having two separate homes and environments. The divorce immediately throws out any kind of stable of environment that the children is any remote closely to. This type of negative environment cannot just toll not only on the child's home life, but also on their education. It starts to become less of priority for the family because there are a lot of factors that have to play into a new situation. And lastly, it is the nation shift between the child and his or her peer group. The direct relationship between the two will fall into the Bronfman-Binner microsystem because it deals with the immediate relationship. Peer groups in school have a great influence on the child. In order to fit into social setting, a child will follow after their peer group. A child will change a certain behavior in order to fit that on that kind of group. Peer group can encourage positive behavior, such succeeding in succeeding in school, and participating in extracurricular activities such as sports, study groups, clubs. Peer groups can also influence negative behavior, such as getting involved with illegal substance or situations. Positive relationship with peers can help a child succeed. Negative relationship with peers can hinder how well the child succeeds. And that's all, guys. Thank you for watching this video presentation. As a reminder, the quizzes and the PowerPoint presentation are currently available in our Google Classroom. Keep safe, everyone, and God bless.